Good morning, Gordon College. I am not Bob Whittet. So one of the things you Christian men majors and biblical studies majors need to know is be ready in season and out of season. So I got the call at 8 o'clock, and here I am. First of all, was that fun? Can we give a shout out for Suzette Edgert for putting that together? We haven't done that for 6 years. You think we should do it more often? What do you think? Yeah. By the way, this is the only chapel where you white people are allowed to clap on 1 and 3. Only chapel you can do that, because that's the way you're supposed to clap for this music. Okay? After that, when the gospel choir is 2 and 4, 2 and 4, y'all. Okay? I don't want to hear anything else. 2 and 4. So, speaking of music, music has been a part of my life for all of my life. Through every stage and every age, music. It's kind of my dad's fault he got me into it. He himself was an amateur musician. You see him helping me out with the guitar and the accordion over there. And I'm grateful for him every day. He passed away 3 years ago. And there's probably not a day that goes by without me thinking about him and being grateful for what he instilled in me. But can I be real? Because that's the only way I roll here. I've also hated music. There have been times where it's caused me pain. It's caused me anger. It's caused me self-esteem issues. It's caused me to go the wrong way. So I have a love-hate relationship with music. More love than hate, but yeah, it's got there. And so today what I want to share is what I call music lessons. These are the things that music has taught me. Now, y'all music majors are going to geek out totally. But I'm not going to focus on secondary dominance and tritone substitution. Yes, I can read the alto clef. I'm that good. But no, we're not going there. Right, Caitlin? You got me on that? Yeah. Nah. It's really more the life lessons that I've been taught while I'm doing music. Music was the excuse God used to get light to dawn on this marble head. And so I'm just going to share with you 6 music lessons that God has taught me. And he's continuing to teach me. There may be a part 2 someday. But can I jump right in? So the first 2 reply to my relationship with God. Let me first set the scene. Take it back to about 7th or 8th grade. Yeah, right in the throes of middle school. Anybody remember middle school? Bad dream, right? And being in middle school, one of the most important things in the world is being cool. Being cool. Now, if there was a word for not cool, that was me. Whatever that word is, that's what I was. So, not cool. I was socially awkward. I was small for my age, which for boys meant a lot in those days. I just was not, I was great in school, but that actually didn't help. Remember those stages? Then came music. And you see, these things are bigger than Dumbos. And so I was able to hear music and then play it, which was cool. So I would play whatever the top 40 radio was. We were still in AM at that day. And I could just take that song and there it is. And nobody knew anybody else who could do that. First song I remember, James Taylor, Fire and Rain. I rocked that song. And so in my youth group, suddenly, what new song has Bill learned this week? And I became basically a virtual karaoke machine before that thing was invented. I was cool. And when we played our youth groupie songs, this was a little before praise and worship became a thing. We had these kind of choruses, we called them. I knew how to rock that thing. I knew how to make it exciting. I knew how to use things like the blue note and glissandos and all kinds of great stuff. And so that was my cool. Then this dude showed up. This guy's named Wayne Anderson. He took over the youth group. And Wayne had a rule. Nobody's in a position of leadership unless they've worked under me for a year. That included playing the piano. And suddenly, overnight, I was not playing the piano anymore. There goes my cool. And yes, that hurt. For over a year, I didn't play. And at first I was really angry, but sitting right here was the best thing that could have happened to me. It was a total gift. Because I needed to learn that my identity could not be in what I did. It could not be in what I was able to do. It had to be the fact that Jesus loved me. End of story. And sitting for that year, I learned that. About a year later, Wayne invited me back. And for several years, all the way up until college, I played for that church and was one of their main musicians. About 10 years ago, Wayne passed away. Guess who played organ at his memorial service? Full circle. But what's my point? This. My identity must be in God and God alone. Nothing else. Do you understand how hard that is? You shall have no other gods before me. I had broken the first commandment. I had made an idol out of my talent. And God ain't playing that. So think about it. Have you put something else before you? Some part of your identity. 2 questions. There's going to be 2 questions. First of all, is my ministry becoming more important than my friendship with God? Think about it. Is that becoming more important? And then secondly, am I gaining identity in what I can do rather than who I am in Him? Tough music lesson, huh? I would love to pretend that I've nailed this, but every once in a while, Jesus needs to remind me, I'm first. I don't need your stinking talent. But can I move on? Back to my relationship with God. This is my granddaughter. She's a lot older. The cute factor's kind of gone away now. She's about 2 years old. She's sitting with a pair of chopsticks and a colander, and she's singing a song she wrote called, I Gotta Get Out of Woo. To this day, we don't know what woo is and why you've got to get out of it. But if I'm ever in a situation that is bad, I will say, I gotta get out of woo. And she just sat there for about 10 minutes. I gotta get out of woo. And she just was just on it. And it was very cute. But let me say something. Musically, she wasn't very good. Timing was really not good. She didn't have a good drumstick grip. When she tried to play the piano, she had no basic grasp of harmony. She hadn't learned to use her diaphragm when she sang. And I'm being ridiculous, right? She's 2. What's my point? Here's my point. Before Almighty God, we're all 2-year-old faith. There are some very talented musicians in this space. Sarita Kwok blows me away every time I hear her play. But before God, the difference in talent between my little faith at 2 and Sarita Kwok is microscopic. Isn't that weird? But think about it. Some electronic guy says, electronic guitar says, I can do, 16 notes triplets over a Phrygian scale. And God says, I created the universe. God is not singing how great thou art to us. Before God, we are all little children. That's both humbling and encouraging, isn't it? It's kind of both. What's my point? This. God is not my critic, He's my daddy. That's pretty heavy, isn't it? Because when Little Faith played her little music, we weren't criticizing her. Why? Because that was our little girl. And we delighted in whatever she could do. And whatever I do before Jesus, Jesus tells the angels, shut up, I'm listening. Because that's my kid. And He hears every single flub that I hear and some of the ones I don't hear. And I don't think He cares. Because that's His kid. And He wants to listen to us do our thing. So whether it's I Gotta Get Out of Woo or Mozart String Concerto, we play before God. Here's my 2 questions. Scripture. Truly, unless you become like little children, you ain't going to get in. Am I being oppressed, limited by perfectionism? I already know the answer, but I just asked it. And then secondly, do I really know that the Father delights in me doing what I enjoy? Do I really know that? I'm a parent and a grandparent, and I know what it means to delight in your kid. If God our Father feels that anywhere near that, that's amazing. Can I move on? These music lessons, aren't they kind of cool, huh? All right, the next two are about understanding my gift. This is New England Conservatory, where I went and got my master's in jazz piano a few years ago. And for the first time in my musical life, I was mediocre. I was at a graduate level, and I was going to school with classmates who had studied jazz in high school. Everything I'd learned about jazz was self-taught. And so I'm in class with these white, young, suburban women. All my isms are just kicking. And they can play jazz better than me. And I'm not hating on them. I'm just saying that was crushing. For me, a black older man, to be challenged and even bested. It was hard. The worst moment is something we call a promotional. It's kind of like your jury's music majors. It's kind of like that, except it's worse. Because you walk into a room and sitting there are not just faculty, but they're people whose records you have. These are people you've read about in Downbeat magazine. And they all have clipboards. And you play for them. Can you say terror? And so I did my promotional, and I'm going to keep it real. I didn't quite fail, but it was just this close. It wasn't very good. And I knew it, and they knew it. And they were gracious. But it hurt so bad. Kind of what Dr. Lindsay was talking about Monday about our massive fail. And so after that moment, Jesus and I had a very colorful conversation. I have those with him. He can take it. Because I was frustrated, because I had practiced. It wasn't like I hadn't tried. And somehow in that long conversation, this is what I heard. I heard God saying to me, Bill, I didn't call you to be a great jazz pianist. And then he reminded me of what I was doing at my church, multi-ethnic, multiracial church, where I was playing every style of music on every instrument imaginable. He reminded me of some of the things I'd done at Young Life camps, which I'll get to later. He reminded me of all the different gifts that I had. And it was then that I realized there were students that were my classmates who were called to be great jazz pianists, and they're right now recording CDs. I see them on Facebook. That wasn't my number. And as humbling as it was really important for me to be the best me. That's hard, isn't it? Not to be the best them. For God has placed all parts in the body. And we're called to do what we do, not what you do. I am really terrible at being you. And you better not try to be me, because you'll fail. I've got to be the me that God has called me to be, and nothing else. And that was the lesson I learned at that promotional. 2 questions. Do I anxiously compare myself to others? Yeah, I already know the answer. Am I learning who I'm uniquely called to be and at peace with that? And part of why you're here right now, students, is to figure that out. You may not get the full answer, but start to realize, oh, I don't have to be like so-and-so. There's only one Bil Mooney McCoy in the world. There was a William Mooney McCoy who died in the 1800s, believe it or not, but I'm supposed to be me. Moving on. Fun story. Brandeis is where I did my undergraduate work. And it was an amazing experience. And there was in the remote part of campus, unlike here where chapel's kind of central, the chapels were like way out there. They'd be kind of almost the equivalent of the other side of Koi Pond. They were far away. They was deserted. And it was always unlocked. And there were pews and some Bibles and a beat-up piano. And me and that piano spent hours together. And that was a time where I would run away to be with Jesus all by myself. Some wonderful times there. Well, one day, I'm in the chapel, just me and Jesus and the piano, and I have no idea why I did this. But I asked God to explain to me modal theory. Yeah, I'm talking Dorian, Phrygian, that stuff. For those of you who are not music, it's kind of a complicated, obscure, like, music theory thing. And I didn't get it. And so I said, Lord, would you teach it to me? To this day, I don't know how it happened, but I walked out of that chapel understanding modal theory. No, there was no internet. I don't know how that happened. It happened. And now, and from that day, I got modal theory. A similar request I had, and this is kind of crazy. I was talking to Sam about this a little while ago. My favorite group in high school was Chicago, right, Jack? And Pete Cetera was the lead singer. And I loved his voice because he was a king of the high C's. His range was just ridiculous. And so somewhere, I think in late high school, early college, I started saying, Lord, I'd like my range to increase. I came out of college with a good B flat. It was solid. But I wanted a C. And so I would pray, and I said, Lord, it's cool if you don't, but I would really love to be able to sing a high C. And I sat on that prayer for about 10 years, maybe a little longer. And he's like, yeah, Lord, I'd love to get a C. Love to get a C. And then it happened. I don't remember the day, but I remember I was at church and the pastor asked me to sing Precious Lord in the key of F, and I knew immediately that means a high C. Through the storm. That one, yeah. And in fact, a few years later, I'm sitting in a workshop and I'm realizing something has changed. And I'm at a D. I didn't even ask for it. I didn't even ask for that. I was good. E flat and I are in negotiations. It's not going well yet. And that's really kind of okay, Here's the point. Bring God into every detail of your life. Those were detailed prayers, weren't they? I prayed for a note. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? I prayed for diatonic modal theory. Don't pray, God, make me a better person. No! Pray for exactly what you want. In the group that Wayne led, we had to use the Phillips translation, and it says, don't worry about anything, whatever, but tell God every detail of your need in earnest and thankful prayer. High C was a detail. I'm a computer programmer. Every once in a while, I've got a misplaced semicolon. That's a detail. I pray, Jesus, show me where the bug is. So the questions, do I ask God to grow me in specific ways? I said specific. And secondly, do I bring him in the very details of my life? My mentor, and historical mentor, is J.S. Bach. And it is said that when he was writing his music, he would often scribble the initials J.J., which is Latin for Jesus, help me out here. And he'd be doing that while he's in the midst of his incredibly complex counterpoint. If my man Bach had to do it, I guess I probably should too. And so in everything I do, Jesus, I'm not really sure how to voice lead this violin part. Yeah, it's that specific. Moving on. Practice of ministry. I'm going to rush a little bit. Let me back up. This is a beautiful black spiritual. So let me back up a little bit. Back at that group where Wayne Anderson was in charge. I'm now in college. And at that point, there's kind of a divide. There used to be a divide here on campus. Thank God for people like Jamie Hillman and Sarita Kwok, it's gone. But there used to be the music department with the real music and the chapel with their not-so-real music. That is completely gone now. But that used to be a mindset. Well, it was a mindset at Park Street as well, where I was at church. And so there was people who would play for the services, and that would be hymns. And then we'd have our youth groupie kind of things. And the two would never meet. And I was in the youth groupie camp. But for this event, we were having a special Christmas event, and they wanted it to be a really classy affair. And so they got an opera major to do 3 songs. And for some stupid reason, they asked me to play. This was out of my comfort zone. And so she came with me with 3 basic classical pieces. The first was Sleigh Ride by Leroy Anderson. I kind of could fake that one. My ears got that. Okay, we know what to do. The second, I think, was a hymn. And at that point, I kind of had the hymns pretty good. The third was Sweet Little Jesus Boy. It's a black spiritual. And it's beautiful, but she handed me an arrangement, and I opened the page and lots of eighth notes. And I'm like, oh, no. Because I can sight read badly. It's what we would call in education a developing skill. But I knew with the time I had, I was not going to be able to pull this one off. And of course, there was no YouTube video that I could watch to hear it. I just knew, I can't do this. And there was my chance to show that I could cross that divide, and I couldn't do it. And then I had an idea. So I said to Tika, how's her name, this would sound really beautiful if you just did this a cappella without accompaniment. She gave me a blink, blink look, but then she tried it, and we both knew it was amazing. And we did the gig. I did the first 2 songs, and then she did that last one a cappella, and she killed it. And I got credited with a brilliant arranging trip, which was really just saving my hide. Here's a story real quick of a fail. Paulia, my wife, and I used to do these conferences called Kingdom Works, and we would lead the worship there, and we'd often do an ad hoc choir. And so one year we're doing this ad hoc choir, and my wife and I are at a sub shop talking about the arrangement that we're going to do for the parts. And we have a disagreement about the alto part. I think it should go this way. She thinks it should go this way. I don't even remember the song or the arrangement. I know a B flat was involved. Well, I jumped out of I have a master's degree. I know more than you. My way is right. And I shut her down. And to this day, I cringe when I remember that. A couple hours later, we're in rehearsal. We're teaching the parts, and it becomes very apparent to both of us her part was better. And somehow verbally, or with our eyes, I am communicating, my bad, you got this, let's do it your way. And we did it her way. In both cases, look for God's plan B. In both cases, if I'd gone the standard route, it wouldn't have worked. In the case with the Sweet Little Jesus Boy, God had a crazy idea, and I went with it. In the case with that arrangement, God had a better idea, and I didn't go with it. And I had a face plant. David, when he was going to the Philistines, said, God, should we go? And there are many passages in the Bible. Gideon, God said, you got too many people. That's a plan B. Get rid of those folks. Or the widow with her jars of oil. Make your last meal for Elijah. I got you. There are places where the intuitive thing is what you didn't do, and God had it. There are other places where they got it wrong, with the Israelites not conquering the Canaanites. That was a fail. Or with Saul just wiling out when he shouldn't have. Or Rehoboam taking bad counsel. In all those cases, they chose badly. Every once in a while, God's got another idea. So my 2 questions. Do I stop and listen and make sure I'm in sync with him? And secondly, am I so invested in the way of doing things that I feel most comfortable that I'm scared to try something new? One more. This is a French horn. It is the most treacherous brass instrument I know. I played it in high school. Or should I say, it played me. Years ago, my wife and I would go to Young Life camps at Lake Champion, and we would go every summer, and we would do the music. And so one of the things I would do is I would create an ad hoc choir with the work crew and summer staff, which were the high school and college volunteers. And we had a thing where it was BYOI, bring your own instrument. And so they would bring whatever instrument they played, and I would write an arrangement for whatever that instrument was. Thank God for my orchestration courses. And one year, a young lady named Kate brought her French horn, and she played well. And I wrote her an arrangement. And she did it with the choir, and it was beautiful, because the horn is a beautiful instrument. About a month later, I'm home, and I get a letter from Kate's mom. And it says, I want to thank you, because when Kate first got to camp, she was lonely and didn't feel like she fit in. But when she got to play with the choir, she suddenly was seen and made new friends and felt like she belonged. I had no idea. I made Kate feel loved. How'd I do that? I wrote a stinking French horn part. How'd that happen? The only important music I make is the lives I touch. We had fun. But the important thing is that we had fun together. And every one of us probably made at least one mistake. And y'all ain't thinking about that. But you're all thinking we need to do that again. We had fun. Catacombs. What is beautiful about Catacombs is not the amazing arrangements that you all come up with, but the love you have for each other. Gospel choir. Ditto. True? True that. Dance men. The fact that you take Tuesday night to pray together and support each other. It's that's more important. We can get so focused on our output. But the second commandment is love your neighbor as yourself. The first one, remember, was love God. The second, love people. Nothing else matters. I may come up with the most amazing arrangement, and I pray I do. But bottom line, it's going to matter, more importantly, how I treated you while we were in rehearsal. That's going to count in the kingdom of heaven. 2 questions. Have I let the output of my ministry take priority of loving those? And finally, do I pay attention to the process as much as the product? Because that's what God cares about. Okay, I laid some heavy stuff on you. 6 music lessons that I am trying to learn. If anybody wants a copy of these lessons, I can send that to you. And I would really actually covet your feedback. I would love to know, did this resonate with you? Did this touch you? And let me know which of the lessons, kind of had your name, rank, and serial number. But the last thing I want to just say is, as you're heading to break, go make some beautiful music. But learn your lessons well. Have a great spring break. Get out of here.